Hey everybody, it's Bookshore. So today I want to talk about a journey with an author that I've never went through again. And it's a very special author to me in a lot of differing ways. It's obviously Haruki Murakami. I first read Haruki Murakami in a philosophy and literature class. I really got to talk about that class on video. That class got me into like postmodernist reading, actually just reading in general. We read we were doing a lot of analysis of different books and a lot of postmodernist themes. So I read like stuff like Borges in that class as well, Lethem, and Murakami read Hardboiled Wonderland and The End of the World, and I was just mesmerized by the book. I just thought it was so cool. I thought the concepts, like how much information you could put on a toothpick and make it a singularity, and kind of how I thought of it later, we do that with pi, where we see a circle, but if we take the mathematical concept of pi, it's actually infinite. The the shifting between dreams and reality, and how everything doesn't line up, and it's like this weird detective mystery, but like nothing happens in such a beautiful, great way. And I was just mesmerized. I'd never read anything like it. I was used to media and fiction just kind of being like fast paced and hard. And this one was just so slow, minute, and just really focused on the mundane aspects of the character and his day to day life. Like just scenes of him shopping and whatnot, with spurts of action. And I just thought it was incredible. I was mesmerized. I was hooked. I needed to read more of him. This was back in my library days too. I was living at home, going to college, and studying my different communication theories and whatnot. And I picked the next book I picked up was Dance, 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 and I loved that book. I finished it in the weekend. At the end of every chapter, I just had to read the next chapter. Again, you just get those quiet, minute moments with his characters, just reflecting on aspects of Japanese culture, American pop culture, just like the problems at hand, how they really don't understand the world. And it's kind of like just being a man in the world. And, there wasn't too many criticisms I had. One thing I noticed in Hardball Wonderland, like, the librarian would just kind of like, just kind of got together, like, okay, whatever, that's kind of weird. It didn't feel like the story was about love, it just kind of happened, so I was fine with it. And Dance, 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 you had the kind of same situation where at the end of the novel he gets with that hotel clerk, and it just kind of seems out of nowhere. Like, why is this girl into him? It just kind of seemed like a plot contrivance, but still, I was just hooked, and I just loved these weird ass detective stories that were just so low key and just so subtle. And the aspects of magical realism that permeated into the plot as well, that didn't feel like overbearing at the same time. And then I would just, at that point, Murakami was my favorite author. He was hands down my favorite author. Mind you, this is before I read people like Pynchon, McElroy, which is now in like, Umberto Eco. I was reading Borges and I was trying to get into Joyce, but at this point, favorite author. So what do I do next? Obviously, because I'm an idiot, I pick up his magnum opus, 1Q84. I was ready. I was excited. I'm like, let's do this. I can't get enough of him. Like, close to like 1,000 pages of Murakamiisms. I'm ready. And I read 1Q84, and I was really enjoying it. I love the plot point with like her being an assassin, the main female character, and the duality matched with the male teacher as well. But cracks started to emerge. It was strange how she was a serial killer, and oh, that's cool, and she uses an ice pick to kill people. That's awesome. But she does it for women in a battered women's shelter, for like their ex abusers. And it's like, that seems like a little weird, just because like, why can't a woman? Why does a woman have to kill for a very specific woman reason? Why can't she just do it for like money, like any other male assassin? Like, oh, okay. And then she started having sex with older men. Like, okay, it's like, oh, I only have sex with people who are old men. I don't have sex with younger people. And it's like, I know Murakami's full of quirkiness, but that's kind of odd. That feels like a little, like author self-insert, because the author is older too. And she's a beautiful woman, but like she changes her face, she's not beautiful anymore. I'm like, okay, that's strange. So then I think it's Tetsuo or whatever, but like, oh, that's Akira. But then the main male character is like, I'm a teacher, just kind of like typical Murakami bro dude. Just like, hey, nothing's my life is not satisfying, but it's not horrible. It's just kind of there. I'm just kind of existing. I'm like, okay, this is cool. But then he's a teacher who has sex with his students, and he just can get it whenever he wants. I'm like, okay. And then there's this big-tittied girl that comes into his life that writes like a perfect novel, and then it's talking about the novel. Like, this feels a little forced, but whatever. There's some interesting parts. I'm going into it, and then realize it's 3 books. It's kind of getting boring by the first book. I'm like, okay, I took major breaks. Okay, whatever. Nothing much is happening. There was some cool little stuff with like the cult. The cult aspects I was loving. And then like the weird little 3 men that go ho ho and he he, they responded to something like that. And I'm like, okay, this something's going on here. Air Chrysalis has to do it's the permeation of the real world, and she just kind of like almost had a divination and had her friend write this book with her and everything. It's like, okay, there's some interesting aspects. And then book 2, I was just bored. I'm like, dude, nothing's happening in this book. Like, I'm used to nothing happening Murakami stuff, but it's usually to the effect of like the author's inner struggles or something like that. And I just felt like just nothing was happening. Like, absolutely nothing. And I don't mean that as exaggerated, just like, okay, they're going to get groceries, they're doing this, whatever. And then like near the end of the book, there's an immaculate conception where he has sex with that one girl and the other female main character gets pregnant. The cult is on their tails. They have to leave their situation, and then they're in hiding, and the cult's after them like, oh, I'm hooked. Totally for it. And also, throughout the whole book, like the 2 main characters are supposed to meet. But okay, I'm hooked. Now the stakes have risen. Now the plot actually kicks into high gear. Let's go for this. And book 3 was such a damn waste of time. It was just nothing. It was just the characters doing absolutely nothing. And not just nothing, but to a degree where Murakami purposely extends them meeting. And it was just so stupid. It was like there was times where they were supposed to meet, they're right at their door, and then they just don't for whatever reason. It felt so forced. The character interaction just stopped. They stopped doing anything interesting. They just talk about Proust and working out at their apartments all day. And the cult doesn't even play a factor till the end, and the end is not satisfying. It is not good. I look. There's a new character there. There's a detective. I'm not gonna pronounce his name, but like, people said like, he's a cartoonish character. He's not great. I liked him because yeah, he's a cartoon, but like, he's the only one doing anything in this plot. But the thing that sucks too is that it's so low grade that, wow, he's just figuring out stuff that we've known for 2 books. And it's just like, cool, I'm glad there's actually some forward momentum because God forbid there be any character agency in this novel. But it's just like, characters not ruminating on anything. You learn nothing new about them. It's just bad. I started looking up reviews too. Like, critics, critics kept saying it was a great novel, gave great reviews. I'm like, okay, I must be missing something. But then when I finished it, I went on Goodreads and people were just bashing it. There was one girl, she's like, I feel like renting a lap in my house for finishing it, but this novel sucks. It's just a waste of time. And he can't write. And like, then comparing it to like other novels, like, dude, Murakami cannot write a female character. Like, his female characters are just like in the sense to be sexual towards men. It's crazy. And this novel got me out of it. Imagine that. He's my favorite author, and I just stopped reading. I want to say a year, probably less than a year. But like, I just stopped. Then I started picking up other stuff eventually. I was like, oh, okay. Then started going to the library more. And, I'd always pass the Murakami section, but then I saw a short story, the sheep story. Everything's about sheep, though. I read it. It was nice. It was like a warm blanket. Like, oh, I kind of miss this. He's my favorite author. Let me give him another try. Let me read one of his more prolific books. And I read Kafka on the Shore. And if you never read a fanfic and want to know what a fanfic reads like, read Kafka on the Shore. Okay, so the old man parts weren't too bad. They're nothing memorizing. They're much better comparable to the young boy section, but like, I wouldn't publish a book about it. If I was a publisher, I wouldn't invest time into those sections. I'd say flesh it out, put it in a more interesting context. And the more interesting context is supposed to be Kafka, the titular character, and he's such a fanfic, man. He is a horrible character. He's just a stand-in for what Murakami wants to be. He's a young man who's super ripped from working out, likes to spend all his time in the library and just read literature. Everybody loves him and gives him the time of day and was willing to pick him up and take him into their houses. Women throw themselves at him, and he just like, oh, I just don't feel accepted in society. I just don't feel right about myself, so I'm gonna leave home. And it's like, dude, you like those Midwest urban emo kids who have a great home life and great parents, and like they just still hate life. He's such an annoying character, and it feels like such a stand-in for Murakami. And then like, okay, so the character's not great. What about the actual stuff he delves into the book? And it's stupid. There's a very weak Oedipus plot, which like where he fucks his mom and his sister, and it's like you don't even know if it's his sister, and it's just like, okay, so he did his mom. We know nothing about her. She's the head of the library. You think that'd be something great, but she is just a Murakami statuesque. I'm a woman. That is my character. I have no other defining features about me rather than except for like my sexual organs. It's like, oh my god, dude. Like it's just bad. Like I can't even tell you what her personality is. Like she has no personality. She's not even a character. She's just the word woman in a book. It's crazy. And then like he bashes feminists in a stupid, cringy, red pill high school internet way. And like you can insult feminists, you can critique anything. You can even critique ideologies that I subscribe to in books. But don't make it a straw man. Don't be lackluster about it. Actually put thought into it. You have this format which is just built for all these topics, and philosophy is built in literature, and you construct a lame ass argument like this. What happens is that two feminists come into the library and they'll being all snippy, they can tell and everything, and like, oh, why are all the men and the women separated? Why aren't the women put first? Oh, that's just the way we do. Blah, 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 blah. And then like the librarian who works there with Kafka is like, oh, well, I'm trans, so you can't say anything about it. Blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh my god, just because you're trans doesn't invalidate the argument. And then like also you gave him like a really stupid argument. Like somebody's like, oh, why are you against like people coming from across America, being from the border? You hate immigrants? Well, I'm Mexican. Also, I'm not against immigration at all. Just an example. But it's like, wouldn't that be such a stupid? If anybody's like pro-rights, pro-Mexican rights, if I say I'm Mexican, it immediately invalidates them. That's ridiculous, man. And it was just so stupid and just so cringy getting from like an older person. Like, dude, you had complete control of this scene, and this is how you construct your argument. You 16? And the surrealist element, like whatever. The plot stuff is like whatever. The climax, like okay, they flip a stone. I guess it's cool in the context that nothing else happens in the book. And after reading this book, like I was like, man, this is trash. And I read like the plot summary for either Norwegian Wood or Sputnik Sweetheart. I think it's Sputnik Sweetheart. And I was reading it, and I was like, I already read this book. I already read this book. And it was 700 pages, like I can't. And I'm just done with Murakami. You read one book, you read them all. If people ask me advice, which one should I start with? I'm like, pick any two. Because any two, it's going to be cool. And then like after that, you're going to see what a one-trick pony is. Everything is the same. Even to the point on Goodreads, there was a Murakami bingo card where all these things in different books, like, oh, was there a man without a face? Check. Was a cat? Mysterious object never get explained. And it's like, oh my god. And like, yeah, authors have their tropes. They have their symbolism they like to go to. But his is so overt. Like, how many books have sheep in them? How many books have no name, nothing female character that I just want to have sex with the main male character? How many? It's just like you see it to such a degree where other authors will use this ideology, use tropes, and apply it to so many different situations. They don't just use the same symbolism. And then it's like you realize that he obfuscates stuff just to obfuscate it, just because he wants to make it mysterious. And it's like a fake mysterious. It's not like something in like McElroy where he doesn't explain everything in the plot and you never will get an answer, because the intention of that is that you learn so much about these people, you learn so much about the situation, but in our lives we never know anything. So it doesn't go to some greater theme or effect. He just does it to be trendy. And like you see that 1Q84 where he talks about like, if you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. And then like that's just a lame excuse. And then you have something like a Chekhov's gun, and then a character will have a gun, and they're talking about the Chekhov's gun, what it's going to be used, and he never uses it. It's like, okay, I see what you're getting at, but like, what does that say about the human condition? What does that say about literature? And like, you're so on the nose about it. It's like, this is a intro college writing class for fiction. It's not good, man. It's just not a good look. Then when I get in more readings, I just see authors doing the hodgepodge he's doing, but better. DeLillo, beautiful author, writes about the mundane all the time, and just has so much to say about American culture. And you know, when he puts these everyday figures and symbols that we don't really think about much, but it's there present to us. You know, he doesn't have to introduce magical realism to make us think and make us feel like what we don't know. He does that with our own world. McElroy does the same thing to an even greater degree. Then you have people like Postier and then Gabriel Marquez who does a much better job with those magic realism, and to an effect where they're actually getting at something important. When I read Murakami, a lot of people like to say literary masturbation, but it feels more like that because when I'm reading Murakami, I'm just reading about things in his life and things he's trying to elevate, not on a McElroy scale, but just like, I don't think he puts much thought into it. Like, McElroy would talk about very particular interpersonal things and then contrast it with large corporate entities, and then contrast it with like history, and contrast it with experimental film and stuff like that, to give us this wide scope of the world, almost like a kaleidoscope, so that we don't know. We don't really know the full scope of what's going on. Murakami just does it because he's like, oh, well, this is part of my life, so this should be cool. That's really it. And also, from a prose level, it's kind of trash. I remember reading an interview about this where some Japanese reader, his parents showed him like, you know, no, this is not literature. This is literature. It's like Yushio Mishima's book, and he disagreed. But George Solis on Instagram told me that Murakami writes to be translated, and that's the most sellout crap in the world, man. You're limiting your prose and your ability to write just to be translated. Listen, man, if we can translate Bottom's Dream into English, you can translate Murakami just fine, even if he put more effort into it. But that's the thing, man. It's not about just being translated. That's not just it. It's about being translated quickly. He used to be my favorite authors, and like Leaf by Leaf said, like, you know, he's somebody, like, when you're in your early 20s, a lot of people gravitate towards him, but the more you get into literature, it's not it, man. He is not it. And then the only reason I can see him being taught in college classes is because it's kind of an intro to like these themes and magic realism and some postmodern elements, barely. But like the only real reason is just economic wise, because it's accessible, it's a fast read, and you have to read other books in a semester because you're not going to have a whole semester to read Gravity's Rainbow or even Bleeding Edge. So Murakami's only decent to teach in colleges just like because it's accessible. So those are my thoughts on Murakami. I know a lot of you probably aren't happy about that, but whatever. I did this video not just to crap and get views or anything, but I was talking to Tom at LA Books on YouTube. With criticism, sometimes when there's an author that's really, we're talking about another author who was really popular, but when people criticized him, it was less to do about the work and more about the author, which doesn't really say anything, to be honest. Okay, this guy's a piece of crap, but that doesn't say much about the work. It can inform some stuff, but it doesn't say much. So I'm doing this because I feel like it's important to really get at the problems with Murakami from a light that, like, yeah, this is my personal experience. This is the things I liked and eventually turned into the things I disliked, and just how repetitive he is. That's the reason I made this video. Let me know what you think. Do you still love Murakami? I'm not gonna trash you if you do. I don't have the energy. Do you hate Murakami? Do you agree? Did you have the same arc I did? I'm really curious to know. Yeah, so just let me know and have a great day.
Next and final stop, Oceanside Transit Centre.